Okay, it looks like our webinar has started. Thank you everyone for joining us. This is a presentation of an information session on the 2026 Public Interest Bar Fellowship Program, formerly known as the LSFN Fellowship Program. A couple of quick accessibility notes. We're actually going to enable captions. You can toggle them on or off if you'd like to have them. We will post the slide deck after the fact on our website. So we are going to make sure that all of the images and the logos are screen reader accessible. We're recording all of this. And so if there's any portion that you missed, you'll be able to watch it later and view the slide deck. We also have an FAQ site on a page on our website. So if there are questions that come up that were not already addressed in the presentation or already on our FAQ, we're going to make sure that we respond to all questions on our website. Another quick note is that we have quite a lengthy presentation. It's going to be about 45 minutes long. It's just kind of a story of how LSFN created the fellowship and why it's now at LAC. So there's a formal presentation. I think most of the questions are going to be answered during this formal presentation. So try to hold your questions if you can. If you have an urgent question, you can put it in the question box and someone on our team will let you know if we're going to answer that live. But we're also going to have a Q&A session at the end. So we have joining with us today, we have Claire and Lucas from LSFN from Bigglesworth. We also are very lucky to have many people in the attendee pool right now who are willing and able to speak about their experiences. We're going to hear from two former fellows who are serving as mentors for the 2026 group. And we're also going to hear from several supervisors. So if you want to ask how the program works, or if you have specific questions and you want to get in the nitty-gritty details, we have people here, whether it's Claire, Lucas, our mentors, or our supervisors, they're going to be able to answer the question for you. So let's get started. I'm going to be presenting. And so since I'm presenting, I won't be able to see the chats. Kasha on our team, she is our senior attorney on the training team. She's going to be helping to monitor those questions. Kasha, did I miss any accessibility issues?
Oh, that sounded great. Thank you.
Great. Okay, I'm going to start presenting. And this is the presentation that's going to be, here we go. It's going to be posted on our website. Let me get into full screen. Everybody sees it?
Yes.
Great. So what we plan to cover today, we are going to go briefly over the origins and the design of the program. We're going to talk about the features of the program, the demographics, the impact of the fellowship, both on legal services organizations, on the sector as a whole, on the community, and also in supporting new attorneys. We'll talk about key components, and then we'll go into Q&A. So just a couple of quick things. I'm Selena. I'm the Executive Director of the Legal Aid Association of California. I think that many of you know me because I email all the time, but if you're not part of the state bar funded IALTA community, I may be a new face to you. The Legal Aid Association of California was founded in 1983 by legal aid leaders, just a generation ahead of us, and they saw a need for legal aid organizations across California to coordinate and organize amongst themselves. We were tiny for a very long time. We're still little, but we're not tiny anymore. And the program that we do really supports the pipeline, including brand new attorneys, but all the way back to law students. We actually fund a summer law student program. If any of your friends are 2Ls and looking for summer funding, we have the Dan Bradley Fellowship, and applications are due March 31st. We also support new attorneys through loan repayment assistance program advocacy that we do. We do a lot of advocacy around public service loan forgiveness. We train attorneys across the state and across different practice areas. And the thing that many of our community members know us for is our advocacy before the state of California. So we lobby for increased funding for legal services, and we also do a lot of work to help protect the rights of your clients, meaning we'll change eligibility standards to make it easier for your clients, or making it really clear that legal aid organizations can do record clearance work with their state funds. So that's just a little bit about LAC, but it also explains why the Legal Services Funders Network trusted LAC with this program. So I'm going to switch it over to Claire because really I want to talk about the origins of the LSFN Fellowship.
Thanks, Selena. Hi, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Claire Solat, and I am one of the founders of the Legal Services Funders Network. In terms of the background of why we decided to create this fellowship, in 2020, as you may remember, we had a pandemic, which as a result made a lot of uncertainty about the administration of the California bar exam. And at that point, we sat down and thought about the fact that we had sort of an ideal moment in time to utilize the time that all of these graduating law students had while they were waiting to figure out when the bar exam was going to be administered, and also help deal with what we anticipated to be increased capacity needs at legal service organizations. So at that point, very rapidly, we formed an advisory committee. I think, Selena, you were actually part of it, and sat down and thought about what the key components would be for a fellowship. We wanted to make sure that it was flexible in terms of recognizing that at some point in time, the participants would need to take time to study for the bar exam. We wanted to also make sure that it was very accessible. And so we designed an application process that we hear still to this day is pretty unique in terms of both the time it takes to apply, the requirements. For example, we don't have a GPA minimum. We don't ask for a whole bunch of additional items. In fact, there's not even a request for a resume. And that there's also two tracks, and Selena will talk more about this, but we knew that there were some applicants who already had a legal service organization that they had a relationship with and wanted to do their fellowship there. But there were also a lot of folks that didn't have that kind of relationship. And so we created both a joint application track and a solo application track, which you'll hear more about. Lucas, anything you want to join in and share?
No, I mean, it's just, it's fun to look back, right? It's quite a different time than it was and, a few years down the road. So it's exciting to have it, move the program to LAC. I think it'll.
One of the other things, just let you all know, is that when we created the fellowship in 2020, at that point, we didn't anticipate it going beyond that year. We thought it was a unique moment in time that we could be opportunistic and really get that synergy of having folks available and having a need for them to provide services. What we found after the first year is that the program was so popular that we continued it on for another 5 years. But we were always constrained because we're a small shop and we just didn't have the capacity to be able to geographically expand the program. And we knew that durationally there would be a limit. And so in 2025, we actually started talking with LAC about doing this transition, which, as Lucas said, we're really excited because we think that with the LAC team at the helm, this program is going to really grow and become something that is going to serve the needs of folks throughout California and hopefully be a model in other states.
Okay, well, with that, let's talk about the future. So here we go. So this is just a quick summary of the timeline and kind of what's expected. So the applicants, you must be a May 2026 law school graduate. You must have attended a law school in California, either ABA or California accredited. You must reside in one of the counties in the program. And this is a part I've already seen questions about this. We are not yet statewide. Our intention is to eventually move statewide. So the core of the program has been in the Bay Area, including all the way down to Monterey County, all the way up to the Oregon border. What we are doing this year is expanding to other counties that serve primarily rural Californians. We have a lot of funders who are really interested in the attorney deserts. They really want to see what they can do to incentivize law students graduating from law school and beginning a practice in a rural part of California. And I can tell you this issue is really close to my heart. My first job out of law school, which was a year later, I had to wait until I passed the bar exam. But my first job out of law school was working with One Justice, and I organized Justice Bus trips. So I brought urban law students from largely San Francisco to rural parts of California to serve clients there. And I think that it is really, really important that we keep incentivizing that to make sure that we bring people from the heavily resourced urban centers to less resourced rural parts of California. So we're not statewide yet. We are primarily Northern California plus rural. So applicants, the legal services organizations, you must be based in the northern bit for Bay Area far north or a rural serving area. And if you're curious about that, please feel free to reach out to me by email and we'll let you know. We are placing between 20 and 25 fellows. We're currently fundraising. I'm hoping that we'll be able to offer at least 25, but every year it's going to depend on the funding that we are able to raise. Doing direct services and policy work or advocacy work. This program also contains a mentor component. So every year, the fellows who are really engaged, we invite those back to be mentors. So this year, we're going to have a handful of mentors from last year's class. You'll hear from some of them today. And they provide additional support, especially around studying for the bar exam. That's a very scary time for many graduates. And the mentors provide that very personal support and like cheerleading, like here's what I did, here's what you can do. And I think that mentor role is really important here. So the application period, it is going to be very busy in April. The applications will open on April 3rd. We'll be seeing them on a rolling basis. So you do want to apply on the earlier end. And as Claire mentioned, the application will be very simple. It should be something you can do on your phone. We are going to post the application questions on our website in advance, but we're waiting until after this in case there's anything in the info session that we want to clarify in the application. The program runs from late May through November. And the way that looks is that if you're a graduating law student, before you take the bar exam, it's like 7 or 8 hours. You meet with your host, you do some learning sessions, but really in July, you are not working. You will hear very little from us other than cheerleading because we want you to be able to focus on studying for the bar exam. There'll be some social events. We'll maybe do some happy hours, some lunches, especially if we have a lot of folks in one area. We'll try to make sure that you're meeting up with each other. Later on in 2026, there'll be the LSFN signature event, which you'll be going to that and getting to meet other fellows and other funders of our work and other legal services providers. And then we'll also have a celebration for fellows later in 2026. And there'll also be an opportunity to attend conferences or other learning opportunities. We'll make sure to lift up for you. And the commitment of hours, 400 hours commitment. You'll be expected to work at your LSO host for 375 hours. And then there'll be about 25 hours in the programming piece through learning sessions, through talking with your mentors, through listening to me. So about 25 hours of that like fellowship time, and then 375 hours of service time. The stipend's $16,000. It's the equivalent of about $40 an hour. And if this were annualized, it would be a salary of $83,200 based on a 40-hour work week. There's no benefits. This is not full-time work. This is really meant to be that bridge to support you in studying for the bar exam and not working and not being an employee, and then having minimal service hours after that. If you're an LSO host, you'll receive about $1,500, and that will help cover fellow overhead costs. So now think about the applications and the MOU. So the applications, as Claire mentioned, there's a joint option and a solo option. If you already have a relationship, either you're a graduating law student, and you've been interning or volunteering with an organization, that would be a joint application. You would agree together to apply. If you are solo, meaning you don't already have a relationship, you will have a chance later in this session to chat with people. We would love for you to start connecting and find out if there's an organization you really want to learn more about. But you as a law student would submit a solo application. We would connect you to the organization that might be the best match. And you would have the opportunity really to see if it's a match and then apply. So you don't already have to have a match. You can apply joint if you do and solo if you don't. It's simple, it's accessible, there's no attachments. You have those brief interviews if you're trying to do a match as a solo. It's a pretty quick turnaround time frame, and it's easy to complete the application. If you are selected as a fellow and as an LSO host, then we move on to MOU. It's going to be very clear expectations. It will say 400 hours. It will say, 25 hours of fellowship programming. There really is that increased autonomy of how many hours do you want to work. I anticipate that there'll be many people who, as soon as they take the bar exam, they may say, actually, I want to see what it feels like to work full-time in a legal services office. I want to work at an organization that will put me in 40 hours a week. That means that time will be pretty quick. You will be in there and out of there within 10 weeks for your service hours. But there may be some organizations who are really looking for staff who could work 20 to 30 hours a week, who would help support court time. And so there will be an ability for you to find the right match. It's also very efficient to have these MOUs. We'll be able to process the MOUs. We'll be able to pay both the fellow and the host organization. And so that's why we really rely on the structure of an MOU. And here is a picture of the 2025 LSFN Fellows. And so these are all the fellows who worked in the Bay Area and far north. And then just a couple key demographics about the fellows for last year. They were local law schools, local graduates connected to local LSOs, supporting local communities. And really the reason behind this and what was baked into the recipe of LSFN Fellowship is that we really wanted fellows who were going to be there and did not have to have long commutes. Many organizations really rely on that personal contact and working directly with clients in person, in court representation, meeting with clients, going to the senior center and meeting with people. And so we want to make it really clear that this is not you live in LA, but maybe you would consider working in Sacramento. We really want those connections. Claire, I saw you come off mute.
One of the things I wanted to clarify is that we don't do a screening at the application phase. So the numbers you're hearing or seeing are organic in terms of just the interest of applicants tends to skew very high for folks that have real life experience. Maybe they or their family were legal aid users. We also have a lot of folks where that's the intention of exactly why they wanted to go to law school, and they find that this is a great pathway. And as Selena said, in terms of doing your 375 hours at the legal aid organization, some of our folks do it very quickly, and then they transition to being law clerks if they're finished before they finish the bar exam. Some of them spend more time and spread it across the time period until the bar exam results come out. And at that point, maybe they're offered a staff attorney position. So the fluidity and the ability to design that is something that we have really thought intentionally to let the fellow and the host organization come up with a plan that works well for them. One of the things that we found is that there are some folks after the bar exam who really do need a couple of weeks to sleep and be with their family and kind of come back. And they're not ready to start August 1st, but other people feel that they really don't want to sit around and just worry about waiting for the results. And so they do want to start early. And the other option is if for some reason you've already finished your 375 hours, but your organization isn't in the position to offer you a job and you don't have a job somewhere else, we've had, and they continue to work at their organization.
So Claire mentioned the numbers. So if you see the numbers here on the slide, 93% of the fellows are historically non-traditional law students or come from underrepresented populations in law schools. 24% of fellows identify as a person with a disability, and 75% of fellows identify as being a member of an ethnic minority. So this is a really diverse group of fellows who come into our profession. And here are the names of the LSFN fellows. And I would love it if, Kasia, could you unmute Daisy and Georgie? And Daisy and Georgie, if it's helpful, you can raise your hand. It'll make us easier for us to unmute you. There we go. And then we'd love to hear from you about your experience. Thank you. Daisy, why don't you go first? And I think you can show your video if you'd like.
Let's see here. I don't think I'm able to actually. It doesn't pop up for me.
Go for it.
But hi, everybody. I'm Daisy. I did the 2025 LSFN as a fellow with Siren. And from that, I was able to actually be hired on as a staff attorney with Siren as well. It is a nonprofit immigration rights and education network where we provide low-income communities with assistance for immigration purposes. And so I do believe that being part of this program or this fellowship was really helpful in allowing me to kind of connect with nonprofit work and meaningful work that we're doing here for our immigrant community. And that's kind of a quick spiel of that.
Thank you, Daisy. And Daisy's agreed to stay on and answer questions. So if we see in the Q&A questions that are more appropriate for a fellow to answer, Daisy's going to stick around. And now Georgie, and I'm sorry we can't show your video. I thought we could turn that on. Georgie, thank you for joining us.
Okay, are you able to hear me?
Oh, yes, totally. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Hey, y'all. My name is Georgie. I was a fellow in the 2025 cohort, and I was at Open Door Legal, which is a universal access to law, and I was on their civil litigation team, which was a great experience because I had zero experience in civil litigation, which helped me get my job that I'm currently in. So it's a fellowship that continues to give, and that experience was unmatched, and I had a great team. And a bit more about just what you kind of get from the fellowship, kind of bouncing off of what Selena said, is you don't have much that you are doing for the fellowship during that bar period, and you're also having a stipend. And so I was concerned about finances. Living in San Francisco is surely not cheap. And so having that support, along with knowing that I had something after I took the bar that I didn't have to worry about while taking and studying for the bar, was just really helpful. And it's a very supportive and encouraging environment. And so if you're at all interested, I highly recommend it.
Thank you for sharing. And Georgie, I think it's going to stick on as well. So I'm
Yeah.
going to advance through the slides. I at least showed your faces. I'm going to advance through the slides to catch up. This is just some information about the host organizations. They have the range of legal aid topics. So there's benefits, there's employment, there's housing, immigration, family law, domestic violence, impact litigation, senior law, child welfare, reproductive rights, and restorative justice. So if any of these are issues, if you're a graduating law student that you're really interested in some of these issues, we have LSO hosts who do this work. The pie graph over here shows in 2025, the counties that were their replacements. I will say things will look different in 2026, but if you're trying to get a sense of the hosts who have been in this program from the beginning, this is very similar to past location pie charts. And then the pre and post exam periods, both Georgie and Daisy touched upon this. During the pre-bar period, really mid-May through the end of June, it's only 7 hours of expectation. There's specific tasks identified. You meet with your host organization, you do a couple of learning sessions, but that pre-time is just mid-May through June. July, remember, is that blackout period. You're not really going to hear a lot from us other than good luck. And then post-bar really is when the service starts. The remainder of the commitment will be completed after the July bar exam, and the fellow and their host will have to agree to a schedule, but you really need to re-engage by August 17th. You can take a 2-week vacation if you need to. If this is the time where you wanted to go to Tokyo, go for it, but come back by August 17th. Fellows must attend all learning sessions, even if they completed their time commitment prior to the remaining learning session. So if you churn out your 375 hours and you're done in 10 weeks, we are going to ask you to keep going to the learning sessions, because that's really where we learn from you. And we also share a lot of important information about getting a career in legal aid, loan repayment. A lot of stuff happens in those last learning sessions. And it is rare, but if you really want to do some hours in July, let us know. If there's a special reason why you needed to get some hours in July, we could accommodate that, but that's not our expectation. So bar exam preparation. This is feedback, which I think that, Daisy and Georgie could tell you as well, that when LSFN asked past fellows in 2025, tell us how your experience was. 100% felt the fellowship was beneficial, or felt the pros and cons balance each other act and had no impact to their bar exam preparation. 75% of the fellows passed the bar exam. That is excellent. It exceeds the statewide pass rate. So we know that the hunches were correct, that being paid to not work actually helps you pass the bar exam. And 100% of the fellows felt that the stipend was extremely helpful in offsetting the cost of taking the bar exam and covering living expenses, as Georgie mentioned, their living expenses in San Francisco. Many fellows also said that being part of a cohort and having meaningful work to do while studying for the bar was very important and helpful. So having that guiding light, when you're done with the bar exam, you're going to be ready to do some good. So supervision of fellows, 94% of fellows rated their satisfaction as extremely satisfied or very satisfied. Over 94% felt that they were appropriately challenged given the assignments they were given, which is fantastic. It's, I think a lot of people, when they graduate from law school, they expect they'll get into this fast-paced career and then it's kind of boring. So I love that 94% felt that they were appropriately challenged. And also throughout the fellowship and in program evaluations, fellows consistently noted that there was a significant benefit of acquiring practical hands-on experience. So I think that really shows that the supervision is very thoughtful, and LSO supervisors are giving real work to their fellows. And here is the, actually, while we're on the supervision of fellows, I would love to invite some of the former supervisors to give their thoughts. We actually have, I think, 5 former supervisors who are willing to speak. We have a lot of K names. So if you raise your hands, we'll unmute you and just share a couple of highlights of how you worked with your fellows. And Kasia will unmute you kind of one at a time.
Hello. I got disconnected and came back because I got invited as a panelist. Perfect. You can all hear me, correct?
Yes, yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Keenan Arun. I'm the executive director for the LGBT Asylum Project. And we have been with LSFN since inception, since 2020. And I have known Claire Solo and Lucas for a very long time now. Thank you all for having us. We're very lucky to be one of the host organizations. And we are a nonprofit, and we provide free legal representation for LGBTQ asylum seekers who had to flee their countries for who they are and who they love. And having a fellow with us is a learning curve. Yes, we do teach. Yes, we do have the hands-on experience for all of them. We do provide affirmative and defensive cases. So our fellows have been learning and assisting our staff attorney and legal director for all of the cases and having one-on-one meetings with the clients and shadowing, learning. But it's a learning curve for us as well, because when something is clunky and not streamlined, it's always good to have fresh air, fresh eyes, fresh set of mind, teaching us how to make things streamlined. So we owe a lot to our fellows as well. And we're very lucky that we have been in touch with all of them. So since the first fellow, Norjma, and to the last one, Barry, we have been collaborating with them. Some of them are not working in immigration field because they wanted to just have the experience and go with their field of study that they would like to pursue. But like Slater, they are currently located with ALRP. So we have a lot of collaboration with them, and they do immigration there, especially for the defensive cases. And for anything that we learn, very last minute updates, because currently, it's a turmoil. So we keep each other updated. That is what we got through LSFN as well, because it's a network. It's a very strong network. And thank you so much for making it even stronger. Thank you.
Thank you. And one thing I really love that you said is that some of your past fellows you weren't able to hire, but others in the community were able to hire, and so you're able to stay in contact with them. And I think that really hits upon one of the strengths of the program is the impact to the entire community. Once we have somebody who's in the fellowship program, they may be more likely to get a job, a permanent job in legal aid.
Yeah, I would like to, exactly. Let me add on to that. We wanted to hire some of them. We didn't have enough funding. When we had the funding, we were a little late to do the job offer because they're wonderful and they got hired by someone else, or they didn't want to go on with immigration. So that's why. But I know some of the fellows stayed with their host organizations. Yes.
Great, thank you. Kasia, can you unmute the next former supervisor to share their experience?
I think that might be me.
Yes.
I'm Kirsten Boyles. I'm the legal director at Legal Assistance for Seniors. We're in Oakland, California, and we have had the pleasure of hosting two fellows, one of whom is still on our staff, and he has been an amazing addition. The other, unfortunately, moved out of the country, so she had a priority of moving to Finland instead of working around here anymore, but we all actually still keep in touch with her. We do elder law, and we do a range of areas. And so kind of our philosophy with fellows is we want to give them, we have a specific supervisor for them, but we also have them work with the whole team, attend meetings, kind of cross-train, so that they can really get a sense of what it feels like. Some of our areas of law, we're providing direct representation, we're going to court. Others may be administrative law, like public benefits and health law, so writing appeals and administrative law hearings. So we really want to give the fellows the opportunity to learn what they're interested in, but also get a sense of all of our areas. And we also have them participate in networking experiences that we go to. So we, have them come to webinars or sit in on meetings, meet other attorneys in other areas of law. We want to make sure that they are able to really figure out the path they want to take. We hope it's legal aid, and we really hope it's elder law. but we want to encourage them just to be successful attorneys. And I think as you all heard about community, some of our, not prior fellows, but some of our prior interns have become our board members. So there are ways for people to give back, even if you do the fellowship and you decide that I would love to do legal aid, but living in the Bay Area, I just can't afford it. We want to make sure that they understand there are other ways to stay in the legal aid community and give back and support. So I'm happy to answer questions down the line.
Thank you, Kirsten. Kasha, can you unmute the next person?
Tunisia, I think you should be able to unmute.
Okay, hi. Good afternoon. My name is Tunisia Owens. I'm the Policy and Advocacy Manager at Family Violence Law Center in Oakland. And our organization provides legal services for survivors of domestic violence, human trafficking, and sexual assault. Because I manage the policy department, it's a little different. We don't do the direct service work where we're serving clients. We're looking at legislation and going to Sacramento, looking at some federal legislation and then local ordinances and doing advocacy there. Our fellow was Sharon, and I just had lunch with her last week. So it was really exciting to see her. And I said, but you were a baby when you came and worked with us. So it was so exciting. I did not realize how much time had passed, but we have stayed in contact. And she checks in with me and maintains a relationship. And I have been able to give her references. We were not able to hire her on because we're a direct service organization and depend a lot on government funds for our agency. So that part was a little hard for me because I really did enjoy Sharon, but I have been glad that she has stayed in contact with me and that I, know about her career and the things that she's working on. So the work is exciting and fun, but it also can be very hard because of the content that we work on and hearing about what's happening with survivors. So I do want to just put that out there that we do work on family law and domestic violence, in addition to some other things, because there's so many intersections now that we're seeing what's happening at the federal level. So if anyone is interested in using their law degree a little differently, then I would consider thinking about FVLC as an opportunity.
Thank you. But Cash, before you unmute the next person, Tunisia also brings up a really interesting point that, it's very clear not every fellow will be able to be hired by the host organization because we're so heavily reliant on government funding, which has suffered a lot of setbacks recently. But I think that actually having a supervisor who can closely observe you doing legal work, whether it's in court representation, whether it's, writing appeals, whether it's supporting policy work, that makes references so much stronger. And so when there are organizations that are able to make hires, your supervisor can speak specifically to the work that you're doing, which feels very different from the recommendation of a law professor or someone who may not actually see you using those skills. So I think actually kind of cultivating a reference is really helpful too. I think we have two more supervisors who are able to share.
Oh, hello.
You got it, Brett.
All right. Hi, my name is Brett Snyder. I am the director of the Legal Services Department here at Jewish Family and Children's Services, and we have been a part of the LSFN or Fellow program since 2022. So we've hosted now 4 different fellows, and it's been a really great experience. I think that we are able to provide for those who are interested a really great entry point into how immigration service work is done for those who are serving the low-income populations that we serve. We've already heard from a couple other hosts that do immigration service work, so I won't spend too much time on it, but we do provide affirmative relief and both in the family, humanitarian, and naturalization-based spaces for the Bay Area's low-income immigrant communities. And I think one of the things we really love to focus on with our fellows is to give them a taste of not only just the direct service work, but we do a lot of legal training as well. We're a fairly small department, and we know that we can do a lot by training others, both attorneys and non-attorneys, about certain facets of immigration law. So we always have our fellows help us to develop and produce a training module during their fellowship. We also have the fellows work on an outreach project because, again, one of the benefits of working with a host that is a nonprofit provider is that you get the experience of what it will be like to work at a nonprofit, and not only the work of doing the actual direct service, but the training and the outreach work. So we've in the past had fellows who have written policy letters to the CDC, who have developed both digital and print resources for outreach. We have had fellows who have provided legal trainings on asylum, marijuana, uh, specific populations and their specific concerns. And I think it really speaks to the diversity of our fellows and what they bring to the table. They have their own perspectives, they have their own ability to problem solve, and it really has been a benefit to our organization to have the fellows every year because each one of them has had their own skills and their own capacities that they are able to use to make their fellowship the best it can be. I will say that one thing we also make sure for every fellow is that we have them represent at least one client before USCIS at a naturalization hearing. I think one of the constant feedback pieces that we have received is that our fellows really do enjoy the direct client contact that we offer as a host. So it is really valuable for us to be able to provide that experience because even if we do not have the funding, which I think a couple of our hosts have mentioned, that it's not always an option for us to provide a job offer when the fellowship ends. But a number of our interns and fellows have gone on to work in the immigration space. So it is really lovely to be able to follow up. One of our fellows ended up going to work at Canal, which is an organization up in Marin that also provides immigration services. So it's always heartening to speak with one of our former fellows who's found a space in the immigration service community. And even for those who don't go on to do immigration work, we've had one or two fellows who have chosen even not to take the bar exam. I think it's a great experience just to be able to work with low-income folks and to know how the provision of immigration services works in this space. So I've said a lot, so I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much for sharing. We have one more supervisor. Here we go. And Kate has a different model of the organization. So I really wanted to make sure she's able to share because I wanted fellows to really see the broad range of work they could do. And I'm going to mute myself for a second and move a cat.
Okay, can everyone hear me? I believe. Okay. So yes, my name is Kate. I'm the executive director with Legal Link. And we're sort of a small, unique nonprofit based in Oakland, but we sort of work across Northern California and now statewide and nationally. And we've had LSFN fellows, we've had really positive experiences. We've had LSFN fellows since 2021. We didn't have one last year, it was the first year. We were going through some internal organizational changes that just didn't work out time-wise, but we've had a fellow in 21, 22, 23, and 24. And I can say, it's been a wonderful opportunity to sort of give someone both professional legal experience, direct client exposure with some of our consults, but just very briefly on our model, we sort of work under this legal empowerment and access to justice approach where we're training and supporting frontline staff who are non-lawyers, so mostly housing case managers, social workers, to help their clients navigate through the legal system. And so as part of our program, we have a legal first aid training. And so it was really exciting to give fellows sort of a different perspective on the law and how it shows up for low-income folks, how it shows up for people out in the community before they've even reached legal aid doors. So in that way, we try to make sure that we're a small but mighty team. And I think one of the unique aspects of this fellowship is that we've made sure to give people a full, well-rounded view on like what it looks like to run a public interest legal nonprofit. So we've had fellows that are both client-facing, doing some of these discrete sort of legal consults that we take on across a wide range of issue areas. So it's again an opportunity to sort of get familiar with a wide array of legal issue areas in this sort of on the ground working with community partners space. And then we also, of course, have a lot of research projects going on at any one given time. We have a series and host of like referral search tools that we use and FAQs and other tools and things that we sort of supplement our training with. And so we have the fellows sort of have their hands in everything. So they get a lot of exposure to sort of the back end of running a nonprofit. And then they're also honing in and learning new areas of law, new issue areas. Having some direct to client experience. And then also we tried to bring in our fellows and have them, both learn the legal first aid training and method and sometimes deliver those trainings to community members. So it's a good opportunity to get hands-on experience in that way. We stay in touch with all of our fellows. We are excited and cheering them on as to where they've landed, including providing references. And, oftentimes they're ending up, we partner with a lot of LSOs across the state. So it's been really exciting and really fun to see where they end up. And we are looking forward to hosting again this year. So appreciation to Claire and to Selena and all the work that goes into the back end of this. And of course, to you guys, to the fellows, we're excited.
Thank you, Kate. So we actually have a few other supervisors who want to speak, but I'm going to hold folks until the Q&A portion. Some of the supervisors have to step off. They've got clients to see, but some of them are sticking around. When the Q&A opens, if you have specific questions about supervision, this is your best chance to ask it. And I'm going to ask for supervisors who navigated the practical training of law student certification registration process. There may be some nitty-gritty questions about that. So at the Q&A, I'll open up that space. So we're going to move on to the next slide, which is, hold on. There we go. And I need to move things around. So I got the chat box open. Okay, so this is what happened last year. This is the virtual learning session kind of flow roadmap for how the fellows were engaged throughout the summer, throughout the cycle. So in June, there's a brief introduction to the California legal aid landscape. I've been doing this for the LSFN Fellowship for years. I will do it again, unless you tell me not to. And in June, there's kind of a self-care, mentor-led bar prep. It's really making sure the mentors support the fellows. In August last year, there was an introduction to the support centers. So in California, we have direct services organizations, and we also have, under a statutory plan, support centers who receive funding in order to support the direct services organization. So some of you on the call are actually from support centers, but in August, we really introduced fellows to the role of support centers. In September last year, we talked about the justice gap. I'm sure we'll talk about the justice gap again. And we also invite people from the state bar to come and talk about the justice gap. October is where we dig into career planning. And that's, after you've taken the bar exam, you have a bit of a breather. It's really a chance to start thinking about, how do I curate my resume, my LinkedIn presence? How do I work those networks and start developing those references? In October last year, there was an intersection of civil legal aid and criminal law. We'll probably do something different in October, but there's a really substantive component to the October learning session. And then the last session last year was alternative public interest jobs. So there's what else is out there? And in 2025, there were mixers, there was a signature event, and a fellow celebration, which we hope to keep those on for 2026. And moving on to the next one. I think someone is unmuted if you want to remute yourself. The evaluations, there were 2 evaluations last year, and we'll plan to keep them. There is both a midterm evaluation and a final. We ask about the application process, supervision, learning sessions, engagement with a cohort. We really ask, is this working? How can we improve? This is now, will be the 7th iteration, and every year there's a little tinkering with it to make it better. So that will be what we plan to do again this summer. And then the evaluations are collected and reported using accepted statistical standards. So we'll make sure that it's not, all willy-nilly. There will be very clear evaluations because we want to make sure we present the information to all of the funders. And then what's really fantastic in these evaluations, 100% of fellows felt the program met their expectations. 100% of the fellows would recommend to the next class participate in the program. 100% of LSO hosts indicated that the fellows increased the capacity to serve clients. And 100% of the hosts felt that the application and evaluation process, they were very simple and straightforward. So that's what we want to hear. We don't want to hear that it was hard and difficult and confusing. And then I'm actually going to turn things to Claire and Lucas. These were just great quotes from last year's fellows. So I wanted them to lift up the best quotes.
Great. So one of the things that we do is we pull from the final application the quotes that we get from fellows and from their supervisors about why the program worked. And you can see on this screen lots of different aspects of what folks liked about this. So I think that obviously most of the fellows found that the stipend was really important in terms of allowing them not to have to worry about how to pay their rent while they were studying for the bar exam. But an equally large group talked about, as Selena and the LSO hosts that just gave their comments were sharing, that that experience to really work in a legal aid organization was really meaningful, and it was well timed because it's a long wait to find out your bar results. Unfortunately, most public service organizations and even a lot of private employers will not give an offer until the bar results come out. And so this gives you a meaningful time to gain more experience, to gain more knowledge. And a lot of folks talked about being part of a cohort was really valuable to them because it can be a very isolating time, and having folks that know what you're going through is really valuable.
And then the next slide is from the host.
So we love this slide because a lot of folks wonder what's the value of having a fellow come in for 3 or 4 months. And as you can see, not only did a lot of organizations talk about the actual capacity that fellows offer, and in particular, one of the biggest factors in your application is about language capacity. Last year, we had fellows that spoke over a dozen different languages, and that is always one of the key features in the solo applications and even in the joint applications that we see as a priority. But we also found that a lot of the fellows hosts talked about the fact that infusing into their organization the energy that a new practitioner has really impacted the well-being of all of their staff. And so that was a huge piece. And as you also heard, that opportunity for both the fellow and for the host organization to spend some time getting to know each other really puts you in a different position when it comes to accepting or making a job offer. So these are all factors that really are valuable about this program. One of the other things that Selena mentioned is there's a real network now. We had over 150 fellows to date. That also means we had over 100 different organizations that participated in some capacity. And often what we find is at the end of a cycle, we'll have organizations that do have space to hire contacting us and saying, if you have any fellows that aren't being hired by their host organization, please let us know because we want to talk to them. So I will turn it back to Selena.
Got it. And so Claire touched upon this, the job offers and employment. Over 80% of fellows secured employment or extended their fellowship by the end of the fellowship. And almost all fellows in the last class are staying in public interest work or poverty law. And so this is really concentrating on the most recent fellows. Over 75% of the 2025 fellows are continuing their career in the public sector. 6 of the fellows accepted job offers from the host, and 2 accepted positions from others. And then others at the time of the survey were, accepting roles in government or private firms, and a handful were kind of determining next steps at the time. But a third of the LSO hosts shared in their final evaluation that they would have offered their LSFN fellow a position, but they didn't have the funds. And so that's a piece that we keep raising is the government funding issue. We are really hoping that organizations are able to make job offers, but really it's about building that network, expanding the network, and making sure that organizations that are able to hire have this pool of fellows with excellent experience and skills that they can hire from. And the impact on access to justice in 2025 was over 6,000 hours of work. The fellows' multilingual abilities enabled them to better assist non-English speaking clients. And our fellows drew on the diverse life experiences to forge invaluable connections with the communities they serve. So there really was an impact on access to justice, especially in that collective of over 6,000 hours. And then Claire mentioned this earlier, but we've already had 6 fellows. We're coming into our 7th cohort. Already had over 150 fellows, well over 50 host organizations, well over 40 past mentors, and then approaching 70,000 hours of added capacity. And then really, this is a robust pipeline for hiring. And then what has changed in the most recent years under the LSFN leadership, they reduced the requirements before the bar exam. There used to be a little bit more before the bar exam, really reduced that. Opened up joint applications when there already was an existing relationship and made the joint application process, oh, I have a typo, that's mine. The joint application process easier. There was a welcome event in August. There were these due dates and an LSO host orientation, Q&A session. So a lot more support on the front end about what fellows would be doing. There was a lot of support with a tailored job board via the LinkedIn group. So when people would find out about job opportunities, it was shared via this job board. And then in-person events that happened in the latter part, the post-bar event, really helping people make those connections. And then we have shifted to LAC starting in 2026. And then this is the last slide before we open Q&A. Just mark your calendars. We're going to put a calendar on our website. If you go to the website already, there's if you scroll down, there's a calendar, but we're going to make it front and centered. The fellowship info session, you're here right now. Applications will open on April 3rd. We'll post the applications in advance so you can see them. Applications will close on April 15th. So it's that quick period. And then fellows and hosts who are not applying jointly, they're applying solo, we will do that matching on a rolling basis. And then those decisions will be made before the beginning of May. We will be sending out MOUs to the fellows who are funded and expect them back by April 8th. The fellowship will officially commence around May 15th. And then that first learning session will be that last week of May. We're really going to have to look at the dates, make sure we nail it down. I know it's a holiday week and we want to make sure that we're making it a time in which everybody can participate. And if you have questions about the matching process, the organizations and the fellows who apply, the fellow applicants who apply solo, we will try to match them together. You have an opportunity to do one interview and you choose to go forward together. Or if in that one interview, it doesn't work out, either of you can say, nope, not for me. And then we'll rematch you. Okay, so thank you to all the past funders of the fellowship program. The past LSFN Fellowship funders include the Walter S. Johnson Foundation, include Yali and Peter Lincroft, the Bernard E. and Alba Whitkin Charitable Foundation, the Peter E. Haas Jr. Family Fund, the Van Lobensel's Rimby Rock Foundation, and the Bigglesworth Family Foundation. So these are all individuals and foundations that have supported legal aid, especially in the Bay Area. We also want to thank the law school deans and administrators of these law schools who have really supported the program and getting the word out to their students. And of course, a huge thank you to all the past LSFN fellows, mentors, and all of the hosts. So the formal program has ended. I'm hoping that Jessica has joined us. Here we go. And Jessica, I am sorry that I should have added you as a panelist because I'm asking you to share and we're not going to see your face. So Jessica, raise your hand if you're in the room. There we are. I see you. And then there you go. Please share. And Jessica, please also give a little bit of background of why you're joining us now.
Yeah, no problem. Hi, everybody. My name is Jessica Juarez. I graduated from GGU Law School back in 2020 during the middle of the pandemic. So lucky for me, that's when the LSFN Fellowship started. And a lot of my panic went away after I was able to do a joint application through the LSFN Fellowship, where I just called an organization that I thought would be really neat to learn from. I did some Social Security administrative work, and they took a chance on me. And so that's what I did as part of my fellowship with Homeless Action Center. And I really loved my experience. I did, like I said, I did Social Security admin work, and it was very different from my experience in law school. I also loved the fellowship because it gave us actual time for bar study and to focus on that. And the experience of being able to work a little bit beforehand and of course, pass the bar exam and just gain experience in the middle of a pandemic. And on top of that, we got a stipend, which was glorious because as you all probably know, finding paid fellowships is very hard. And it was even harder during 2020. I also served as a mentor and a senior mentor in the past, where we just allowed fellows to have an extra sense of support, not only from the LSO host organizations that support their fellow, and Claire and Lucas, and now the future lead of this fellowship, have been incredibly supportive towards all fellows. But we realized that adding a mentor and adding the opportunity for fellows to really connect with somebody who just went and experienced the fellowship was a good thing, and kind of like the middle person to really be the best resource. And so the mentors have been incredibly helpful all throughout all the cohorts since it started, and have just really been super supportive and guided the fellows. And the fellows have just gotten so much experience just from that and their amazing LSO host organization. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions. And I love the fellowship, as you can probably tell.
Thank you. And Jessica's agreed to stay on. She's our mentor to the mentors, essentially. So she'll be staying on through the 2026 cycle as well. I'm going to read a couple of the questions, and if I can't answer them, Claire or Lucas might, or we might have supervisors. If you can answer the question, raise your hand. The first question we got was, what's going on statewide? And I answered that on air. We're not going fully statewide. It's really still focused kind of Monterey, far north, but with also the rural serving organizations. If you're curious, ask us, but we really want to make sure that we're prioritizing those adding water to the attorney deserts that we have here in California. The next question is kind of a two questions together. The organization, this is an LSO host. I'd love to hear how unionized orgs have handled fellows with regards to job status. They are required as an employer to provide benefits to folks unless they are temporary or volunteer intern. What do LSO hosts do if they're unionized? Do they pay the benefits? What do they do? So if you are an LSO host who is unionized, raise your hand and you can answer the question. And Lucas, you came off mute. Did you want to answer how that happens? Oh,
I think. Oh, please. Yeah.
No. You go ahead. But I see Laura Chiara as an answer.
I believe in the past that because of the structure, it's not. It hasn't been an issue, right? I think it's kind of separate from because they're not considered employees, right? They're a fellow, so it's not. It hasn't been unless something is shifted or something. Maybe internal policies, because the way we've structured it from the beginning, it kind of allows that autonomy, allows that independence to be able to bring them on.
Yes, LAC pays the fellow, so it does make a difference. But Laura, why don't you speak to your experience?
I would. So we've had several, including Jessica. I guess Jessica, we had post fellows, post bar fellow, and we have. Honestly, we've done it both ways. I think because I think at first when we were doing the funding and it was coming through us, we paid them, and I think we supplemented it so that the amount that they received was equal to what our first year staff attorney would make, and we included benefits, but of course that was also during the pandemic, just to highlight that. Last year with Maya, who was in the cohort last year, we did not offer benefits. And the money didn't come through us. We didn't pay her. We subsequently hired her for a staff attorney position, and now obviously pay her both. That's it. What hasn't been a problem for us with the union.
So Selena, I was going to jump in and explain a little bit about what Laura just said. So in the first year that we offered the fellowship, the LSFN provided the funds to the host organization, and the host organization then through payroll was paying the fellows. We found for a variety of reasons this was not a good approach. It complicated things in terms of fellows getting paid at different times. It raised these issues in terms of whether they should get benefits. The way that it's now done, and I think it's going to continue, is that LAC is the entity that winds up paying the fellows' stipends. And so you avoid some of those issues when it comes to whether you should or should not be offering benefits because you're a union shop or just because you're an organization that feels compelled to. The other piece of it that when we did our original research, we found that because fellows are given the discretion to set their own hours, that really helps in terms of getting over that employee relationship. And so our understanding is both because of the way the payments are done and because the fellows have a lot of autonomy in terms of designing the fellowship timeline, those two things really put you in a comfortable position. We wish organizations had the capacity to fund benefits, obviously, but that's not the case. And we also wanted to have equity among the fellows and not have folks getting different situations depending on which host organization they were with.
Thank you. Yes, and I would just add, in case it's on some of your minds or if students may be interested, it's also the stipends amount aren't tied directly to hours worked, right? So the stipend is for the 300 or 400 hours of service, and then that's it, right? And so you're not getting paid as you complete hours and things along those lines, in addition to what Claire has mentioned about being able to set your own schedules and be really autonomous there.
I saw another hand raised. Was that a Q&A or was that another supervisor? Maybe they put their hand down. There was a question asked in the Q&A that I want to make sure we read aloud and answer live. One person asked from Career Services, can we clarify how this program and funding could fit with a year-long school-funded fellowship? And I think Claire and Lucas can answer that much better than I will, but we will maintain the flexibility, but they should answer.
So one of the things we learned, and actually we didn't hear about this before the fellows applied, so often it was a little bit of a surprise to us because in the final evaluation, we would say to the fellow, what are you going to be doing? And I think that more than a dozen wound up in a situation where they already had planned to stay with their organization through a fellowship that either their law school offered or from some other funding that they were able to identify. And so we did have every year fellows that when we thought that they would cycle out at the end of the calendar year, they in fact were doing another 6 months or so with their organizations. So it's a great way to create a year-long fellowship. Related to that, one of the things I wanted to explain, and some people over the years have asked about this, is why do you start this process so late in the spring? And that's because we want to make sure folks have the opportunity to really exhaust their search for a full year fellowship before they wind up applying for this fellowship. It's really essential that if you want to participate, it's something that once you sign that MOU, you are going to be doing. Every year we do have, actually, I don't think last year we did have, Lucas, you may have a different memory, but there are unique situations where people either have a relocation or there's a situation where there's a timing issue of if they don't accept the job, it's going to go away. We do find ways to work with fellows in that situation. But it's really imperative that as someone who is making that commitment both to the program and to your host, that they know that after the bar exam, you in fact will be showing up.
That's great. And I would just say additionally to the core question about multiple fellowships or multiple funding, in the past, the LSFN in the past, and I assume LAC in the future, we didn't have any restrictions about kind of doubling down, right? And shout out to the law school administrators that may be on here that have switched around their programs that did have restrictions, because we did run into that in a couple years back, I believe. But the idea, and we've actually, I think in the last cohort, we even had someone who had a short fellowship or a short project opportunity that came during the fellowship and was able to work with their host to be able to both complete that fellowship and complete the service hours for the LSFN in a slightly different time frame than originally expected. So I think, as everybody's mentioned so far, the core to this is to really be able to allow these fellows to succeed. And we know that those $16,000 is significant. It is not. It is a couple of months rent in SF. So the idea is to be able to get as many as you want. And also for the administrators or anybody else who's doing fellowships, if you do have restrictions, please think about not having them. So, yeah.
Related to what Lucas just said, the way that the payment process has worked to date is that taxes are not taken out of that stipend. There are two reasons for that. One is we want to make sure that as many dollars goes to the hand of the fellows so that they can use that for living expenses. The other is we don't know what other income the fellow had. And so at the end of the calendar year, and there's always information provided during the onboarding to make sure folks do in fact report that income. But that's something that the fellows work on themselves independent because of the fact that everyone's in a different situation in terms of other income they may have earned during the calendar year.
Jessica wants to answer something.
I also wanted to add on to the bandwagon of what Lucas was saying. I'm glad that more law schools have opened up their restrictions, but I do want to make sure that the law students who are interested in trying to work out fellowships, whether it's the Bridge Fellowship or another one, along with the this fellowship, that you guys read the fine print, and don't be afraid or don't be too shy to ask and advocate for yourself. Sometimes when you ask and to see if there's any wiggle room to make it work and extend something, not specifically with this fellowship only, but I'm just saying in general with any other fellowship, or if you're trying to make it into a one-year thing and work it with your school, I would say that this is the best time to advocate for yourself and see what type of wiggle room can be made so that that can work for you.
I'll add a little bit more information here. We, because we pay law students for their summer work at LAC, we have the Dan Bradley Fellowship. We have been tracking generally the community's pay of law students. We have reports on our website, but we also have been tracking how law schools pay their fellows, and it has been a little complicated. You know, some law schools have a set amount, but they'll reduce it if your employer pays anything at all. And we really encourage as much funding as possible for summer law students working in legal aid and for graduates who plan to work in legal aid before they pass the bar exam. This is a time in which students and graduates are taking a lot of personal loans. I am one of those people who didn't have a job right after I graduated. I think it was 8,500 in personal loans just to pay the bills. And this is what we want to try to reduce. And so we are supportive of you finding funding, whether it's through your law school, whether it's through other fellowships, or whether it's through our fellowship. We want to make sure that we reduce that debt burden as you approach your career in legal aid. So we've been tracking the information with law schools generally. And we actually, the Legal Aid Association of California, we just got funding from the California Access to Justice Commission to create an online, I'm not going to say portal, but like an online home of how to get a job in legal aid if you're a current law student. It really depends on what law school you're at, the kind of support you get from your career services or your clinical staff, and helping to explain how to get a job. This fellowship is amazing because it tells you how to get a job. It gets you those experiences. It gets you those references, the skills. It gets you, and helps you understand and have the opportunity to work with clients. But not everybody gets that. And so when you're a law student and you know you want to work in legal aid, you know you want to work in public interest, and you just can't figure out how to do it, we're going to create a website that demystifies as much as possible. It will include things like videos and timelines and how you get funding. So that is not launched yet. I think our funding starts on April 1st. But when we start getting that funding, we're going to be talking with a lot of you to understand what are those things that you don't understand about getting a job in legal aid, and how can we create a website that helps everyone, every current law student in California and beyond, to understand how to get a job here. We have plenty of time for more Q&A. I actually would love to ask a recent supervisor how you navigated the practical training of law students, the PTLS registration process. So if you were the person on your team who did that, please raise your hand and we'll let you answer.
Selena, I'll jump in while you're queuing up the next person. One of the things that we found was really important is that if you are accepted into the fellowship and you haven't already had a PTLS, do that before graduation, because it is very hard to go back to the Office of Administration in August and say, hey, can you get the dean to sign this piece of paper? If you already have had a PTLS form from a prior internship that you did, that's much easier, where all they do is ask you to re-enroll with the updated information of the new organization and the new supervisor you're going to have. But it is something really important if you're someone, especially if you're going to be going to court. There are, as you heard today, some fellowships where they're much more policy and research oriented, so the PTLS is not essential. But if you're going to do that client one-on-one and you have the potential for being in court, the PTLS is really important.
I don't see any supervisors with raised hands, but I did the PTLS program as a law student. It's pretty straightforward. It's just paperwork. So if you have never had a law student as a LSO host and you want to learn more about the program, there are links on our website to the state bar's resources. But as Claire said, like, time is of the essence. It's much easier to do it before graduation. And I was able
to... Another thing I just wanted to jump in and share is that for any organization that has not hosted before and is feeling a little bit uncertain about not knowing what you're going to do with your fellow, or feeling like you might not have enough support to be able to do it, especially if you're in a very small shop, one of the things that we curated, which LAC will put on its website, is a list of examples of the types of work that fellows have done over the years. And we also have many former LSO hosts that have offered to continue to be mentors. So many times we'll have an organization that will call, after this info session to somebody like Laura or Brett and say, could you just spend a little time talking to me about what your experience is? Because we haven't had this type of situation before, and we just want to know what we're getting into and feel comfortable with that.
Thank you, Claire. We have another question I'm going to read and answer live. Will the joint application also be available early on March 31st, or when will that be available so we can send it to the organization? So we aim to have both applications, both joint and solo, live April 3rd. We are going to PDF it or copy the questions in a way that earlier in that week, it could be March 30th or March 31st, both the joint and the solo. So they're pretty similar, but we'll make those available before so that you have time to look at it. But remember, it's very simple. You should be able to do it on your phone. So
It might be helpful if Daisy or Georgie or Jessica or any of the host organizations just really explain the fact that this is not an onerous, you're going to spend weeks trying to collect information and think about writing essays experience. So I'll leave it to one of them to talk about how they completed the application and what that felt like.
Not to, I completed it quite quickly. The moment it came out, I was like, I got to get on this. And it took me maybe 10 minutes. And that's because I wanted to double check that to make sure I had all the information right. So do not stress about this. Do not stay up late thinking about what you're going to say. Maybe have it thought out beforehand, because I think Selena said that they'd be posting the questions, but this is a very inviting application. I don't stress about it.
thank you, Georgie. Well, we still have time. If anyone has a question, we're happy to answer it. We're holding 3 to 4:30 to have enough time for Q&A. But I think it's really a testament to the program that there's not that many questions, because so many host organizations have been doing this at some point over the last 7 years. But we'll stick around for a few more minutes in case there's any follow-up questions. And if you think of any questions later, feel free to email. Hold on. I think our email address is fellowships@laconline.org. I will check that in the next minute to make sure it's plural, but I'm pretty sure it's fellowships. And that is, I'll put it in the notes to the meeting, because everyone who registered, you will get the recording, you'll get the slide deck, and I will make sure to have our actual email address on there, which I think is also included on our website. I just sometimes forget if I make things plural or singular.
I believe it's plural.
Okay, that sounds good, because we have more than one fellowship. Any other questions?
The one thing I will recommend in terms of your application, because it's a rolling process, it's really important to try to get the application in during that first week. Many times we wind up with folks that wait until the last week of the application process. And it's really sad, because some of the best candidates we've had were just not able to offer the fellowship opportunity to. Same thing with host organizations. If you think that you're interested in being a host organization, get your name in there early. We have had over the years many joint applications that we were unable to approve because by the time they were submitted, we had already completed the cohort. And so the earlier that you can get that information into LAC, the better chance you have of participating. And it also gives them a good opportunity to look at the diversity of organizations that are being involved in the fellowship, the diversity of schools. One of the things that was really important to us is we didn't want to create a situation where, 50% of the fellows all came from one law school, and that created sort of an uncomfortable relationship for the rest of the cohort. And so that's the type of thing where the more information they have, the earlier, that's really helpful for the team that's building out this cohort.
We have one question, one chat. Jessica shared in the chat. I'm not sure if everyone sees it, but I'm reading it for the purpose of the video. The application is very easy, and there's none of the usual requirements like GPA or writing assignments. The point of the application is to get to know the fellow applicants, and if needed, to help match the fellow applicants to an LSO host. And then there was one question. This is just a union org saying, in my limited experience, collective bargaining agreements are only applied to employees. This is not an employer-employee relationship. And so this internship really is a time-limited frame, and temporary employment, which is like temporary fellowships, are a really different category. Okay, I see a question. Jose? Jose, I think you can unmute yourself now. We don't hear you, so
There we go.
Do you hear it now?
Yeah, there you go. Sorry about that. It took a second to come on the screen. Yeah, my name is Jose Padron. I'm with Justice at Last. I just wanted to briefly touch on just kind of the whole process. It's very quick. I've had an opportunity to be a fellow in 2022, fall of 2022. So I saw it from that end of the spectrum. And then since then, I stayed with the org that I was with, which is Just at Last, and have been coordinating the LSFN, previously LSFN program fellowship since then every year. And from the aspect of the host, it's been a very, very quick process, the application. And like Jessica posted, the point of the application with the candidates is to get to know them. And so even the interview process, once we get connected with somebody, whether we did filed a joint application or we received, a candidate match, it's not, it's not like your typical law firm, I think, interviews where you have to maybe provide a writing sample or something crazy like that. It's very, very much just like Jessica mentioned, which is getting to know the candidate and see if it's a right fit. So we've had a fellow every single year for the last 3-4 years. Since I was a fellow, and even the year before that, we had a fellow that was there prior to me. I definitely encourage anybody who is graduating, anybody who's looking for something, and anybody who's here, who knows classmates who might still be looking around to, at the very least, take a look at the website, because it is a very, very great opportunity for a post-bar that bridges that gap between taking the exam and getting the results if they don't have anything already secured. So thank you for the presentation today, and for Claire and everybody, and Lucas, Jessica, everybody who's run the program all these years. I think our organization has benefited greatly from having fellows. I know I myself benefited from being a prior fellow and now coordinating the fellowship program with our organization. So it's great to see that it's continuing on.
Thank you. And we have a question, but we've also opened chat up where people are able to speak to each other. And I know in past info sessions, this was a time in which organizations said, hey, we're looking to match, here's more information about us. If you're interested, let us know. So if you're an LSO organization interested in hosting, you can put your information, and then law students who are on now, they'll be able to see that information. I think also last year, Lucas captured the chats and made it part of the slide deck. And so we'll try to see how best to do those chats where organizations said we'd love to hire. And this is actually the question said, how are host organizations connected with applicants who apply individually? And additionally, is there a separate application or process required for organizations to be considered as host? So the way it happens is either you join, like you already have worked together, you are a graduating law student who's already volunteered or interned, so that's a joint application. The other process is solo. Applicants who are individual graduating law students and LSO hosts, potential hosts, they both apply, and then we match that time period where it says matching happens, I think April 7th through April 25th. We will be matching you each with each other based on your interest, by language access, by the type of work you're looking for, where you're located, and then you'll have an opportunity to meet with each other and either say, yep, let's go, or actually it doesn't work for me, put me back in, match me with someone else. So either one can determine it's not the best match for them.
What you're seeing happening in the chat right now is something that organically started about 4 years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where organizations started putting out information about themselves. And what it did is it actually took the process that Jessica had mentioned that she did as a first cohort fellow and turned it into something that was much more accessible, because if host organizations know they'd love to have a fellow but don't have someone in mind, this is a perfect opportunity to give a little information about yourself. And then any students that are here today or watch the video recording in the next week or so, they can actually reach out to the host organization and say, I think I might be a good match for you. Can we set up a phone call? And so over the years, we wound up with, a third of the cohort were what we considered the traditional joint application. Close to a third became these folks that actually met fairly recently and did some interviewing separately from the application process and then decided to apply as a joint application. And then the last piece were the folks that just independently submitted to the LAC or to LSFN. And that's the curation process where the folks that are reading the applications from the prospective fellow and the prospective host sit there and say, I think this is going to be a match. And then they contact you and say, set up your interview. One thing related to that, which we didn't go over, is because the timeline is so short, Lucas, you can help remind me, how much time did we have from the time that the individuals were matched to when they wanted to have their first meeting and then when you wanted to hear back from them?
Traditionally, it was within, I believe, 48 to 72 hours. So it's a very quick clip, right? So generally how the process works is, again, two solo applications would come together. We determine the matching based on things we've discussed already, like location and language capacity, et cetera. And then I'll notify both the applicant, the student applicant, as well as the host applicant, give them, I believe it was 72 hours to connect. And they would also confirm with me that they are planning to connect on said day. So that way again, it's a very fast moving train. Once they connected, we gave 48 hours for them to let us know either way. And so that would be independent as well. So I don't know if LAC's continuing to do it that way, but independently, you would report back yay or nay. If either or nay, obviously, then we just let both know, and then you go back to the applicant pool. And at least in previous years, because of demand, that doesn't mean you're going to get another application or another chance to interview, because it just may not be a fit. That may have been the closest one, et cetera. And then, of course, if it's both yes, then we're easily to be able to confirm and congratulate, and then you're kind of on hold until we send out MOUs, right, to kind of confirm the cohort. So again, at most, it's a week. It generally happened within a few days, to be honest. So because people are very excited and kind of wanted to get going, particularly folks who'd been part of the program before. So because they knew it is quite a clip. So
the other thing to remember is this is not a full year job offer. This is a situation where you will, as a host organization, probably be with your fellow for 3 or 4 months. And so the amount of time you need to spend to vet somebody and decide if you want to have that little exposure, we feel it's reasonable to have one interview and to also trust the process that LAC is going to do some screening ahead of time to make sure that they think that the person would be a good match for you.
Yeah, I would fully agree on that and just double down, because that was some hesitation. And I believe we've heard from hosts in the past that would come back and be like, really, really regretted not moving forward with someone. Just because it's the idea that, you're going through and it is a short period of time. And thankfully we have these evaluations and these kind of really great results on them, like, 100% across the boards and honestly every year, right? It's to Claire's kind of comment, trust the process. And I think you can even trust it more now in the hands of LAC, right? So
one other thing that I just also wanted to mention is that over the years, sometimes we've had folks that applied and then they contacted us and said their law school has been absolute that they should not have a job while they're preparing for the bar exam. And one of the things that we did as a result of that is, as you noticed, it's an absolutely tiny, tiny time commitment pre-bar. So it used to be much bigger, Jessica could tell you. But we have really tried to make sure that it's enough time to blend as a cohort, to make sure you've done a check-in, to make sure you finalize some of the different documents like the PTLS, but not so much time that it should in any way interfere with your bar prep. So if you're a law school administrator who's on this Zoom today, or if you hear the recording later, please just don't send the message to prospective applicants that this, for some reason, is envisioned as a conflict with bar prep, because as you saw in the slide, 100% of the participants say that this is actually something that's beneficial to them or neutral when it came to bar prep.
Jessica has had her hand raised. Go for it, Jessica.
I just want to jump in for a few things. When I did the application for the joint application, I just literally emailed this organization, HACK, and I said, hey, I heard you're looking for a summer intern. I know about this fellowship. Would you be interested in chatting? And they said yes. We did our own interview on the side via Zoom, of course. We felt like we were a good match. And so then we agreed that when the time came for applications to open up, that we would apply for each other in a sense. So I encourage any law school students out there who really loved interning somewhere or who have an eye on wanting to intern somewhere, especially if it's somewhere where you're going to get a different experience or something that you never thought you might be interested in, take that chance. Or on the other hand, from LSO hosts or just any organization where you have somebody in mind or your current intern, or just like throwing it into the chat, this is really a great opportunity to get people. And the application, as mentioned a million times, is super, super easy. I also want to echo that the pre-bar hours was 20, then it went down to like 14, and then I think it's even less than that now. Not sure what the requirement will be now that LAAC has it. But the point is just for the connections to be made at the beginning, and so that the mentors have the opportunity to go over tips about the bar exam, not necessarily bar prep, at least that's what we've done in the past, but more so of like, dang, I wish I would have known this. I wish I would have known to wear layers at the exam and to pack a lunch or bring cash, because now I'm begging the car behind me to pay for my parking situation kind of thing. And so those
real story.
Honestly, they are. So these are all experiences that we've had and collected over the years that we want to make sure that you, the future fellow, knows about. And so that's what we dedicate a learning session to in the middle of June or early June, just for that. And then it's a blackout period after that, where it allows the graduate, the fellow, to really focus on the bar exam. And now you've connected with all the other fellows who are literally going through the same torture of studying for the exam. So that also allows you to have other peers for you to connect with other than your law school friends, and study together, or just know that you guys are in this together. And the fellowship is supportive on top of that. So I just wanted to throw those couple of things on top. And my final point, sorry, I'm hogging a little longer. Legal assistance to the elderly, which they did post. They've been stuck with me for the last few years. That's where I went after this fellowship. The eviction defense work that we do is really to keep people with disabilities or seniors from getting evicted. And you would be surprised on the kinds of things that come up. There's also a lot of landlord-tenant issues that we can throw the fellow in, depending on how open they are to trying different things. So I just wanted to add some context to that post that's in the chat. Thank you.
Great. Yeah.
One thing I just want to piggyback on what Jessica just said, which is really important, is the list that you saw of all the types of organizations and the subject matter, that tends to be the traditional list that most of these host organizations work on. If you are a law student and you want to do, for example, environmental law, or if you're interested in working on small businesses, things that are a little bit unique, those are situations where it is really helpful for you to do a joint application, because we very rarely get a solo application from one of those types of organizations. And unfortunately, we get a lot of applicants who want those types of positions, and we just don't have a host organization to match them with. So if that is your passion, go out now and do exactly what Jessica said, which is contact an organization and say, I would love to work with you. I don't need you to pay me, because I have this opportunity where I will get my payment from a different entity. And that may be the difference of them saying, okay, yeah, we're interested in considering this.
So with that, we are now at the end of the program, the end of the formal program. We appreciate everyone who made time today to attend live so you could ask questions. This will be posted, and anything that we answered live that seems like it should go in the FAQ, we'll be adding it to the FAQ. And everyone will receive an email with a recording and next steps and reminders. And as soon as the application questions are posted, we'll share it, and then we'll ping you again when the application goes live. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much to Claire and to Lucas for creating this program and for trusting us with the program, but we're excited to take it on. So
we're excited to see it move into your hands.
Thanks. So thank you, everyone. I look forward to seeing your applications. Goodbye.